Hey there folks, and welcome to another episode of A Healthy Dose of Fran. Today is another throwback movie for you all, but this time with a superhero theme. But not what you may be expecting, as in like not Marvel or DC, but in fact actually a Disney related live action superhero film, which to me is probably one of the best superhero live action films I've ever seen. This film, for anyone who doesn't know, is Sky High. Now, Sky High, for anyone who doesn't know, was a 2004 film by Walt Disney, written by, now I've got the names here because firstly I couldn't fit on my whiteboard, but it was written by Paul Hernandez, Robert Sholey and Mark McCorkle. Now, Robert and Mark were both actually the writers for the Kim Possible animated series and also for this film. So not only does that give them huge props from me to them for the fact that they were the Kim Possible writers, because Kim Possible is the greatest animation ever, and I have done a Kim Possible related video carded up here, so go check that out. But also it just proves even more so how great their writing is, and Sky High is no exception. The story itself is absolutely brilliant, and to give a little context to what the story is, basically think superheroes in high school, teenage superheroes. It can't get any better than that. So what's really interesting about this film is, firstly, it is all about supers, but particularly the education of supers, which is something I'd never really thought about well, just in general with superhero films. You don't really think about superheroes getting an education as to how to be a superhero, because it's such a novel concept, but something that I kind of, until I saw this film, didn't think was needed. But it's such an interesting concept, and it works really, really well, and it's done at a hilarious level that kind of has no bounds for its hilarity. And the jokes, they last with time. It's like you can watch it now and still find the jokes that go on in it funny. There's like, oh, it's just brilliant. And the acting in this is phenomenal. So we've actually got a few actors in this, well, I say a few, I think probably only three, that have actually been superheroes and later on have been in superhero related films or TV shows. So the main one, so this is one that I only found out like last year or something. There's a character called Principal Powers in this film, and it turns out they are actually played by the original actress for Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, I think her name was. I'm going to feel really bad if I've gotten that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Linda Carter. But she is Wonder Woman, and they reference the fact that she is Wonder Woman as this character of Principal Powers. And if that's not hitting the fourth wall on the head, I don't know what is. And it's just brilliant. But then we've also got Kurt Russell, who, for anyone who hasn't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, my bad, but I'm going to spoil this, he plays, oh my god, Star-Lord's father in that film. Then we also have, I'm going to have to check her name because her last name is a little bit complicated for me, Daniel Panabaker. It's not actually as complicated, so I thought I just forgot it. And she plays, I don't actually remember her character's name now. She has like Frost-like abilities. She's in The Flash, so she's one of Barry's friends and associates at Star Labs. So not only was this kind of their starting superhero-based career, except for, you know, Linda Carter, who, you know, she's Wonder Woman. She had that career before, but, you know, really cool reference. But what's kind of the most interesting thing about this film is not only because of the teen superhero concept, but also how villains kind of come to be, and just in general, like it makes me, okay, this is going to sound really weird, but I love that with the superhero abilities, they still have the same teen related issues, like who to take to homecoming, like, who do you like, bullying, blah 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 blah, but just at a super powered level. But even still, some of the same things, like putting someone in a locker still has the same kind of feel to it, like super abilities or not. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. But the thing that's really interesting is how in which heroes and villains come to be, and more often than not it's related to the person's personality. So the people who are the bullies more often than not ended up becoming villains. But then we also have the main villain who, okay, this may be a few spoilers here, is Royal Pain, but was originally someone called Gwen, who was in fact bullied for her abilities and mocked because she was a technopath, which just meant she could, like, with her mind, put things together. But because no one really knew what that power was at the time she was at high school, she was made a sidekick and considered less important because of her abilities, and was put down because of it, which led to her becoming a villain. So it has like a really interesting concept and way in which schools, education and people define how other people will become who, but defines how people can change, and that doesn't make any sense. Let me recalibrate. Education and the way in which you treat people defines what this person may become in future. That's what I was meaning. And the way in which they show this, considering like with abilities of a hero and a villain, and even kind of changes your opinions of some of the things like that. So there's a character called Warren Peace, which I found out was actually a play on the term war and peace, considering that he is actually meant to originally kind of come across as the villainous character, which he does portray these sort of abilities, these sort of characteristics, because he is a bit of a bully, is a hothead with pyrotechnic abilities. But later on we realise that he is actually a good guy, and he was just being defined by the fact that his father was one of the most notorious villains, so everyone just immediately assumed that he would be a villain. Which is like an interesting concept, because again, it turns out not to be true, which is very different from the people who are the villains, two of which kind of made sense that they were going to become the villains because they were just arseholes. But then one of them was the most surprising because she was kind and sweet, she was very popular, very well liked, but she was in fact the main villain. And again with the hero and the sidekick thing, this was another thing that was subverted in this film, and this subversion I feel like is what has made this film stand out to me as one of my favourite hero movies of all time. Not only because it is a family teen comedy drama sort of thing, so lots of genres in general, but considering it is and comes across as simplistic, it's actually has a lot of depth to it. Like, the characters are dynamic, the characters often aren't what we expect them to be. So there's the character of Layla, who has a crush on the main character, Will. So she is actually very different from what we expect, especially with her powers in particular, because she was a bit of a pacifist. She didn't like violence or aggression or anything like that, so she didn't use her powers unless necessary. And when we do see her use her powers, they are amazing, so much more than what people expected. So she was put into the sidekick level because she refused to show her powers, when with the amount of power in which her powers are, how strong her powers are really meant that she should have actually been a hero. But by the end of the film, so many people who were put into the sidekick thing turned out to actually be heroes because they used their abilities to their advantage, and not actually just from what people assume, that because you can only shapeshift into a guinea pig, you can't ever actually be useful. But these guys not only use their powers to their advantage, but they also use their intelligence to their advantage. I found that really interesting. But the most interesting thing about this is, even though the film centres around a male hero and a lot of other male side heroes, the female characters are the ones that more often than not have been more interesting and more of a powerful character than anything. And I really, really love that, considering that we have so little superhero films that focus on female characters. There's only 2 so far that are coming out. So obviously there's Captain Marvel and there's been Wonder Woman. And we do have Birds of Prey coming out much later, but currently there hasn't been much. But Sky High, even though it is the main protagonist is male, the female characters are the ones that defined the movie for me, because they are powerful, they are intelligent, they are brave, they kind of support but then also hold up the male characters, because more often than not it is the female characters who are helping to save the day. Obviously at this point, well, not even think that the men get the credit. They all get the credit because they all did the saving. They are all recognised for their achievement. And I really quite like that, considering this was 2004, and I'm saying that, I feel like, it was 2004, or 2005. Who knows? There's a lot of progression to this, because all the this is just, I love when characters are done well. And this was definitely one of those cases, and considering superhero films, the side cast aren't always that well developed. In this one, they really are. Everyone has their moment to shine. And I really do appreciate it, because we learn to love all of these characters individually and as a group. And I think that, along with all the other things that I've talked about, is what has made this one of the best superhero films. And yes, it's superheroes in high school, but that's amazing. And I can't understand why no one else has seen this film. And if you haven't seen this film, I highly recommend seeing this film, because it is worth the watch. But for those of you who have seen Sky High, do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you think it is one of the best superhero films of all times, or do you think it's actually a bit crap? Let me know in the comment section down below. And do you guys think you will watch this movie based on what I've been talking about, even though most of what I've been saying is pretty nonsensical? Also, let me know in the comment section down below. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you go to the description box down below, you'll find a link to the IMDb or Wikipedia page for Sky High, so you can learn a little bit more about the film. You'll also find the links to my Instagram and Patreon, where on Patreon you can get early access to any and all of my videos, as well as have a say as to what comes out in future. Here on YouTube, however, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Go to the button down below and click on that, or click on the one popping up here on screen. If you want to check out any of my previous throwback videos, the playlist will be popping up here, and then something else will be popping up here. Be sure to leave a like if you like what I've been talking about, and I'll see you guys next time.